Hello, readers, and welcome to the second week of Quarantine Literacy. I am so happy to have you back. This week, we are going to have a really special theme. This week, our theme is going to be on friendship. So, you will notice as you're reading books, just in general, not even just the books that we're reading this week, but just a lot of the kids' books that you're reading, have a really common theme of friendship. Now, friendships can begin in all sorts of ways, and they can end in all sorts of ways, and they can really affect and change characters in many different ways as well. So, before we really dive into friendship, I thought that it would be fun if you brainstormed what you already know about being a good friend and what friendship is. So I want you to grab a marker and a piece of paper right now. It can be any size paper. The bigger the better. You got it? Okay, so on your paper, I want you to write the word friendship in the middle. And then you can draw a circle or a cloud around it. I like to draw a cloud just because I think it looks pretty. This is called a web. This is the beginning of a web. So a web has a middle, and then it has all these things that shoot off of it. So I'm going to show you how you're going to continue with your web. So you have friendship in the middle, and then you're going to brainstorm what makes a good friend or what is friendship. And you're just going to draw lines off of your web, and you're going to come up with ideas that go in those circles off of the web. So this is what a web looks like. And you can have a few ideas, 1 or 2, or you could have a bunch of ideas, 12 or 13. Just spend some time thinking about what makes a good friend in your own life or in the books that you've read, or what makes just like the best friend that you could think of. Okay, and we're going to work on that at the end of the book. Or you can pause the video now and just write down what you already know about friendship, because my guess is you already know a lot about what makes a good friend, because I bet you are a really good friend to someone or to many people. Are you ready for our first book? This is one of my favorite books, and there are quite a few of them. I think maybe 4 or 5 of these chapter books. They're called Frog and Toad, and this one is called Frog and Toad Are Friends. And all of these books are by an author named Arnold Lobel. These are really special books, I think. There are 2 characters in this book, right? There's Frog and Toad, as it says in the title. And they have a super special friendship. And we'll talk about some of the things that are really different and interesting about their friendship, and some of the things that maybe don't work in their friendship. And I hope that maybe you'll even go off and read some of the other Frog and Toad books, because we won't have time for all of them today. So this is a chapter book. It has a table of contents here, which shows you what stories are in here. We're going to read the story, A Lost Button. Tell me what page A Lost Button is on. Can you see there? The table of contents gives you a clue about where to find information, or where to find chapters in this case. A Lost Button is on page 28. If you knew that, give yourself a pat on the back and just say, "Good job, me." A Lost Button. Toad and Frog went for a long walk. They walked across a large meadow. They walked in the woods. They walked along the river. At last they went back home to Toad's house. "Oh, drat," said Toad. "Not only do my feet hurt, but I have lost one of the buttons on my jacket." You see that? You can see that one of his buttons are missing. He is not happy about that. "Well, don't worry," said Frog. "We will go back to all the places where we walked. We will soon find your button." They walked back to the large meadow. They began to look for the button in the tall grass. "Well, here's your button," cried Frog.
"Oh, that is not my button," said Toad. "That button is black. My button was white."
Toad put the black button in his pocket. A sparrow flew down. "Excuse me," said the sparrow. "Did you lose a button? I found one."
"That is not my button," said Toad. "That button has 2 holes. My button had 4 holes."
Toad put the button with 2 holes in his pocket. They went back to the woods and looked on the dark paths. "Well, here's your button," said Frog.
"That is not my button," cried Toad. "That button is small. My button was big."
Toad put the small button in his pocket. Boy, Toad sure seems to be getting more and more frustrated, doesn't he? But what is Frog doing over and over and over again? Think about that. Think about the ways in which Frog is being a good friend right now. In fact, if you are hearing evidence of Frog being a good friend, put your hand on your head, just like this. Oh, Frog is being a good friend by doing something that I'm about to read about. So when you hear evidence that Frog is being a really good friend, hand on head. A raccoon came out from behind a tree. "I heard you were looking for a button," he said. "Here's one that I just found."
"That is not my button,"
wailed Toad.
"That button is square. My button was round."
Toad put the square button in his pocket. Frog and Toad went back to the river. They looked for the button in the mud. If your hand is on your head, I agree. "Here's your button," said Frog.
"That is not my button," shouted Toad. "That button is thin. My button was thick."
Did you have your hand on your head for Toad helping him out, trying to help him find his button? No, I did. That sure does seem like something a good friend would do. Toad put the thin button in his pocket. He was very angry. He jumped up and down and screamed,
"The whole world is covered with buttons, but not one of them is mine."
Toad ran home and slammed the door. There, on the floor, he saw his white, 4-holed, big, round, thick button.
"Oh," said Toad, "it was here all the time. What a lot of trouble I have made for Frog."
Interesting to me that that's the first thing he thinks about when he finds his button. He thinks, gosh, I sure put my friend through a lot. All that looking. Remember I put my hand on my head back here where I thought Frog was being a good friend because he was helping Toad look for his button. And in fact, he even found a button that he thought was Toad's. Well, now I'm thinking that I'm hearing evidence of being a good friend right now because Toad is being so thoughtful, so compassionate. The first thing he thought when he realized that his button was on the floor of his home all along was not, "Oh, I'm so annoyed, I wasted all that time." The first thing he thought was, "Boy, I sure made a lot of trouble for my friend who was trying to be helpful." So let's see what Toad is going to do about it. Toad took all of the buttons out of his pocket. He took his sewing box down from the shelf. Toad sewed the buttons all over his jacket. The next day, Toad gave his jacket to Frog. Frog thought that it was beautiful. He put it on and jumped for joy. None of the buttons fell off. Toad had sewed them on very well. Look how happy Frog is there, jumping around, loving his new jacket. And Toad's got no jacket at all. I definitely noticed a lot of evidence of friendship in that book from both characters. Toad is kind of a grump, right? If we were going to do a character study, I would definitely be listing the character traits of Toad and Frog, and they're very different characters, right? Frog is this sort of soft-spoken, sweet, kind character who kind of reminds me of Patricia from Thundercake. And Toad is a little bit more loud, and he's quick to get angry. He kind of reminds me of Sheila Ray from Sheila Ray the Brave. When you read a lot of books, it's fun to make connections to characters across books. That can be really fun. It's another way to make a connection. Sometimes we make connections to things in our own lives, and sometimes we make connections to other books. So, back to friendship. I noticed Frog being a really good friend by trying to help Toad find his button. And he didn't just say, oh, let me look around a little bit. He went through the tall grass, he trudged through the mud, he went all over looking for that button. And he didn't give up. He persevered even when the sparrow flew down and thought they'd found the button. The raccoon showed up and thought they'd found the button. They both just kept, Frog really kept working with Toad to find that button, even when it seemed hopeless. And Toad also showed some evidence of being a good friend, despite his grumpiness. He, at the end, when he realized that he had put Frog through all of that for nothing, what did he decide to do to sort of make up for it with Frog? What did Toad do to make up to it with Frog? If you said that he made him a new jacket, you are right. So now take that piece of paper and pen that you got earlier, and hopefully you already started your web, right? You're going to now write down some evidence of friendship or some things that make a good friend. So for me, I have already started my list, as you can see. And some things I wrote down is that, friends help each other, which we definitely learned in that book, right? Friends help each other. Frog helped out Toad when he had lost his button. Friends are caring. We definitely learned that in Frog and Toad. Both of them, I thought, were really caring toward each other. Friends do activities together, right? Even if it's just that they're out looking for something together. But often friends will do things like get pizza together, or get ice cream together, or play soccer together, or play on the playground together. Maybe they'll do a sleepover together, or go skating together. Lots of things that friends can do together. I wrote that friendship really requires trust. And that means that both friends have to be able to trust the other person. Trust that they are going to be kind. Trust that they're going to be honest and truthful, which is another, I think, big component of friendship, is being honest and truthful. I also wrote down that friends give advice and they receive advice. So we can talk about that one a little bit more. Friends have fun together. Do you guys agree with that? I mean, it wouldn't be a very good friendship if you never had fun. I also wrote that friendship can change and people can change in a friendship, even because of the friendship. I also wrote that sometimes friendships are between people who are really similar, right? And sometimes friendships are between people who are really different, like Frog and Toad. They're pretty different people, but they sure are good friends, aren't they? So that's my list of friendship qualities. And I want you to write your own list today. So come back tomorrow with your web of friendship qualities, and we will continue with another book and another friendship. Until then, bye readers.